All right, everyone, I'm going to share my new embroidery machine that I purchased right after Christmas, and I'm so excited. This has been a couple years in the making. I love my original embroidery machine, and I still use it a lot, especially because my original embroidery machine is a free arm, so it makes shirts so effortless. So I still use it a lot. I'm not replacing it. I'm just adding to my machine collection. So the reason that I did decide to upgrade is because I wanted to chase a bigger hoop size. I've been really wanting to do a bigger hoop to just expand the projects that I can do. I have been very much enjoying in the hoop projects and quilting in the hoop. So I wanted to have a bigger hoop size so I wouldn't be as limited and so I could do things just a little bit easier. So I decided to get a flatbed machine this time around with a very big hoop. I got the Meridian 2 and I'll link it down below. That way you can see all of the specs on it. I love her. She has been so fun to play with. She arrived just after Christmas and I was able to just sit and enjoy and create some fun things while I was learning the ropes on how to use this new machine. So I've been having a lot of fun behind the scenes, but we're going to use my new machine today because my winter project I shared at the beginning of the year is to do the candy cane lane bench pillow. I did stitch one of the quilt blocks behind the scenes because I wanted to test out my new machine, but I'm going to stitch out another one for you today. So we're going to go ahead and get that all prepped and ready to go. So we're going to hoop the stabilizer in my new hoop, which is nice and big. And then I have all the fabric all prepped for us, but I need to add a fusible backing to the back. So I'm going to get all of that ready to go. We're going to stitch out a fun quilt block and I hope you enjoy. These are such fun videos to watch. So even if you don't do embroidery or aren't interested in adding embroidery to your list of hobbies, stick around because these are so fun to watch. This is going to be an applique in the hoop quilt block, and applique is one of the most relaxing things to watch come together. Okay, so I have everything all prepped. I prepped all of my fabric based by the quilt block in these little envelopes, so that way when I'm ready to, say, stitch out the hot cocoa stand, then that is all ready to go. So all of the fabric is cut down to size for each quilt block. So I just need to decide which one we're going to do today. So this is a picture of where we are going with this. And I did stitch out this tan house just on my own because I wanted to play around with the machine, learn how to thread it, and just get to know this new machine. And I've been having so much fun. Okay, so I think what I will do today is, gosh, I feel like the Christmas tree would be really fun to stitch out. I think I'll do another house. Yeah, I'm gonna do another house because I did the tan one. So I did this one on my own behind the scenes, and let's go ahead and do this little blue one today. So what I need to do is just go through my fabric. So I have cocoa stand, red house, street lamp, blue house. There it is. Okay, so this is the little pouch that I have for all of my fabric for that particular block. So everything's all ready to go. I will link these down below. You can use Ziploc little baggies. I use those forever and ever. But I bought these for my scrapbooking. I bought these for my card making, and I honestly never ended up using them. I used them for a couple things, but I had a ton of these. So when I was prepping my fabric, I thought these are a perfect idea. And then I can just remove all the little labels once I'm done. That way I can reuse them for the next project. So I'm gonna bring out all of my little fabrics. We have a little clear vinyl sheet. We also have some glitter iron-on, which will be really fun. And then we have a little teal piece, a turquoise piece, a little blue piece. And again, these are all trimmed down to size. And when you get your little CD of designs, you will have the cutting instructions and all of that as well. And then I have this little white piece as well. And then we have our background piece, which is this really pretty dotted gray. So I love this because it looks like a snowy background. It has all of the little white dots, which look like snow to me. So those are all of our pieces. Now, what I do need to do though is I need to put my quilting design. I bought a quilt design from Kimberbell so it would do some background quilting on my blocks, which I love that look and it's so pretty. So I'm going to merge that background quilting design with my blue house design. That way it'll all stitch out together. So I'm going to do that really quickly in Embroidery, and then we will get our fabric all pressed and we'll start stitching out. This is going to be so fun, and it's going to be really nice because, as I was saying, I've been wanting to get all of these things done. I've always been saving these for the Christmas time, but I'm learning that I do not have time during the Christmas season to sit down and do fun projects like this. So it's still winter and we're just going to stitch throughout the winter season, even though Christmas is over, and get this done so we can enjoy it next Christmas. Okay, so I have my little iron all ready to go, and I have my pieces. Now, the ones we want to focus on are the fabric pieces. We will not be adding anything to the iron-on, nor obviously the vinyl, okay? This is gonna be our little window, which will be really fun. Okay, so what I need to do is we're going to iron the fusible backing onto the wrong side of the fabric. So we're going to flip it over. So again, this is the side that we are using. So we want to use the back side to put this backing on. Now the backing is just providing some structure. And I love their fusible backing. I think it is so nice to use. So I'll link this down below as well. I very much enjoy it. Now I have some little leftover pieces that I just keep in my roll in case I can use them. So like this, perfect. Let me trim this down. These are not my fabric scissors, but it's gonna be okay. Okay, so they're on the other side of the room and I'm gonna make do with these. Okay, so that piece will go with that. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start trimming pieces down to fit my fabric pieces. And you don't need to do, it doesn't need to be, let me trim that. It doesn't need to be the same size. I usually do a 1/4 inch, you know, a little, just a tad bit smaller. Okay, so that works. And you can also do this with a rotary cutter as well. I just do quick, it's just the back, so I just do quick little cuts and iron it on. Okay, so this piece is all ready to go. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. About a 1/4 inch-ish, 1/4 to a 1/2 inch, I guess. Well, that's more like a 1/4 of an inch smaller than the fabric. And then you just iron that on. Oh, I should have shown you though. There are two sides, so you'll see the adhesive. So this is, you know, nice and matte. You'll see the shiny. You're gonna do the shiny side down because that's the adhesive that will attach it to the wrong side of your fabric. Okay, so that one is good to go and prepped. And I like to do this all at once because once you start stitching, it's better to have everything just ready to go so that you can keep going. It's harder, and I've done it both ways. It's harder to stop and then go, you know, grab your fabric and then put the backing on. It's just very much easier if you do all of this at once so that by the time you have your hoop all stabilized and ready to go, then you just stitch and you just have fun. Okay, so that looks great. It doesn't take much. And just have these little pieces. Oh, this will work for one of my scrap pieces. Trim this down. In my last video, I was sharing with you in my organizational video where I was cleaning up my craft room, I was showing all my Kimberbell projects that I have started but not completed. So I was being super honest, and it's just one of those things. I get started and get excited about it, and then either life or other crafts start taking priority over it, and then I don't know, it just kind of gets lost. So it's all good, but this is the year we're going to get a lot of these done. So here are all of the fabric pieces with the fusible backing all ready to go. Now I'm going to go into Embroidery, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to merge those files so that we can have everything stitch out together. And also with your little scrap pieces, make sure you keep those because applique often has tinier pieces that you need. So I just put those all on my roll and then use my slop band and secure them. That way they're all ready to go there and I know where to find them. All right, so here we are in Embrilliance. This is the embroidery software that I have learned on, and here is my new hoop size. So I have a 9.5 by 14 hoop, which I'm so excited about. And now what I'm going to do is bring my designs in. So I just need to go over to open and locate my files. And I am first going to bring in the background quilting. So I am going to, I don't know why this is so small in here. I'm going to go to PES. And then I want the 6 by 8, I believe. Yes, the 6 by 8. And I want the vertical snowflakes. So let me click this one. Yes, because I want my snowflakes going this way. The other one has the lines, see these blue lines? It has them going horizontal. But I've set mine to go vertical so that they're all consistent. So I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to go over to the right-hand side. I'm going to check out all of the steps it's going to do. So this is all going to help us secure our quilt batting, and then we're going to do our background quilting in the hoop. Okay, so now I need the design that goes on top, which is going to be our blue house. So it's on my desktop. I'm going to simply drag it on top. Okay, so that is all good to go. Now, the only other thing that I need to do is I need to move my design down. I believe it needs to go here. No, it needs to go, I think they said 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Yeah, I think that's right, because this line is going to be where we cut our quilt block, and this needs to be about 1/4 of an inch on top of that. So I'm just going to do it in the software because it's easier than doing it on my machine, for me at least. So yeah, that should be good to go. I like that. Now, the only other thing is that because in our first step, we are already tacking down our fabric, we don't need to do it 2 times. So on this step, it looks like it's got a line for our fabric, but our fabric's already going to be placed down, so we don't need that. And then we already have this fabric tacked down, so we don't need to do that. And then the next steps are going to be the placement stitch for the house, tack down stitch for the house, so we're good to go. Okay, so the reason they have those steps in there is if you decide not to do the background quilting, but the background quilting takes care of those 2 steps when it's doing its job. So that's why I deleted those first 2 steps in the blue house design, because they're already going to be done. All right, so now what I can do is save this. So I like to go to File, and I save it as Save as Stitch and Working. And what that does is it's going to save the stitch file, but it's also going to save it as a working file just in case something happens and I need to come back and fix the file. So that way I don't have to start over. So I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to put it on my flash drive so I can take it over to my embroidery machine. And then I am going to say Blue House Quilting. Whoops. Quilting. Okay, that way I know that that design includes the quilting. Just gonna go on my desktop, and from my desktop I'll drag it onto my flash drive. Save. Okay, I want to pause for a second because I realize this is a lot of information. So if you're new to this, it's okay. Everybody starts somewhere. So slow down, go watch other videos if you need a little bit more introductory, but I'm trying to keep it step by step as I can. Another one of my favorite creators is Carly Bell. She teaches embroidery just so beautifully. So I'm going to link her channel down below as well. She really taught me a lot when I was first starting with embroidery about 3 years ago, and her videos are really amazing if you're just getting started as well. So I know this is a lot of information, but deep breaths, it's so fun once you get the hang of it, and it's just going to be a really, really fun little hobby. So I know this is a lot of information. I just wanted to stop for a second and acknowledge that, but deep breaths, it's going to be super fun. Okay, so here is, oh my goodness, here is my new hoop. Look how big it is. Okay, I'm so excited. So now the next step is grabbing the stabilizer. And I have a lightweight mesh stabilizer that I like to use for projects like this. So I'm gonna grab that and we are going to place it in the hoop. And then we have our design ready. We have the fabric all cut and we have the backing all ironed on the back. So we're ready to go. Okay, so here is my stabilizer. And I'll link the one and the size that I got down below because I had to get it a couple times because I didn't get stabilizer that was big enough. So second time was a charm, but I'm going to roll this out kind of over my hoop to get an idea, and then grab some scissors and trim that down. Okay, so I have my stabilizer in there. And now I'm going to just take the top and push it right down. And you want this to be really taut. So it's going to, be really tight in there. And if you need to, I just kind of pull on the sides a little bit to tighten it up. There is a little screw here that you can tighten on the sides. Okay. And this is the hoop that came with my machine. I do want to upgrade to a different hoop eventually, but I'm going to use this as long as I can. Okay. But I just need to research because I know there's other hoops that you can hoop things a little bit easier. Okay, but that's nice and tight. So we are ready to go. All right, let's go ahead and start stitching out this awesome quilt block. I'm really excited for you to see it all play out because it's so fun to watch. And applique is one of my favorite things to do, so it's so fun to do as well. Okay, so I'm going to put my hoop on, slide it right on. Okay, so I have my hoop on. The first thing that I'm going to do, and I always do this, is I just map out where my design is going to go. That way I make sure that the needle is nowhere near the frame. And it's just tracing the edges of the design, and that's nowhere near the frame, so I'm good to go. I just do that as a precaution every time. Okay, and then the first thing it's going to do is stitch the placement stitch for our batting. Okay, now we have a placement stitch that's going to show us where to place our batting. So I'm going to cover that area with batting, and I'm going to use some tape. This is just medical tape from Dollar Tree, but Kimberbell also has a tape that is wonderful. And in fact, I have a new roll of that I should use. But I'm just gonna secure all four sides, especially because my batting was kind of folded up from when I purchased it. That way it lays down nice and flat. And now we're going to stitch the tack down line so it will secure this. It's all done. So now I'm going to trim off the extra batting. Okay. And I will just have my tape here off to the side, and we can reuse this throughout the project. So I'm going to remove that. Here we go. And then I'm going to use for this the little duckbill scissors. And you can use them whichever way you want. I use them in the way that works best for me. So sometimes people tell me if I'm doing something correct or not. There's really no right or wrong in crafting sometimes, within limits. As long as it's getting the job done nicely, then whatever works for you. Okay. So then I'm just trimming around, and sorry the stitching is white, but that's the first color that I'm using. So I just wanted to have that loaded so that I didn't have to change. Okay, here we go. And then the next thing that is going to happen is it's going to stitch out the placement line for the fabric. So the stitching for the fabric is going to be outside of this line, which is nice because then when we go to sew our quilt blocks together, there's not going to be any batting in the seams. So that's why the next line is going to be a little bit bigger, okay? Okay, so you can see how this placement stitch is about 1/4 of an inch outside of the batting. So then when we cut down our quilt square at the end and when it's time to stitch them together, when we're stitching, we're not going to have any of that batting in the seam, which is wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to place over my placement stitch my background fabric. Okay, and I can tape that into place. We're using that tape that I just used earlier. And now we will stitch out our tack down line. And once the tack down line is all stitched out, I'll have it begin doing the background quilting. So you'll want to make sure you have the thread color that you want for the background quilting. And actually, I think I do need to change my thread color. I think I have it doing a gray. Okay, so that is the end of the background quilting. So when we were in Embrilliance and merging our designs together, this is the end of the first design. So now we're going to start on the house design, and this is where I deleted the first 2 steps because the first 2 steps we're going to be doing the placement stitch and the tack down stitch for the fabric, but we already did that in this step, so we don't need to do it 2 times. So now we're going to start with our placement stitch for the house. Okay, now we have a placement stitch for our fabric, so we're going to cover that. Okay, and then you can tape that down. And then you can change your thread color if you'd like. I'm not going to because this is just the tack down stitch. And I know that this will be covered with a satin stitch in the end, which is nice and thick so you won't see it underneath. So now I'll go ahead and do the tack down stitch. Okay, so now you can see how pretty that background quilting looks. Isn't that nice? And then we have this to trim out, and I am going to use my snips. I like to use my snips for applique. And again, I can save my tape. You don't have to use the tape if you don't want. Sometimes I just hover my fabric over it. Really just depends if I feel like it can withstand not being taped down. Okay, so I'm just gonna trim all my extra off. And some of you have been mentioning that you can use the Cricut to cut your fabric, which I'm aware of, but I have told you all that this is my favorite part of applique. For some reason, the trimming is so relaxing to me. So I don't pre-cut the shapes of my fabric, though you can if you don't like doing this. Ooh, I got this a little bit short on the side, but no problem. Okay, now we're going to stitch out the tack down line for the roof, and then we'll stitch that into place and we'll just keep going. I also like to keep a lint roller on hand just to get the extra threads that sometimes stick around. So I like to do that. That way they don't get accidentally stitched permanently when we do some of our final stitching. I kind of like to clean those as I go. Okay, the next placement stitch is going to do a placement stitch for a couple of windows, and we're going to use one piece of fabric for both. Okay, you can trim these right on out, and you can either, based on how much you have left over, you can save your fabric or do what you wish. Go around this window first, and then this top one as well. Now the next step is it's going to do the door. So again, placement stitch, put our fabric down, tack down stitch, and then trim. Okay, now the next step that we're going to do, we have most of our applique pieces down. We still have the vinyl for the window, and then we have our glitter for our candy cane. But now we're going to start doing some of our finishing stitches. So the first that is going to stitch out is the satin stitch for the house. So this stitch right here. So let me clean this one up just a little bit there. Okay, that's good to go. Clean this up. So I am going to grab some thread. I just took off the tape accidentally here, but that's okay because this is fully secure on the hoop now. I'm gonna grab some thread that I think will color match this best, and we'll do that satin stitch. And while I'm here, I'm just cleaning up a couple of these little flyaways. That's what I like to call them. Okay. Especially since we're doing the satin stitch next. Okay, so any little stragglers, I just get those right off. Okay, now I need to change my thread color, and I'm going to change it to this color to be close to my roof color, and it's going to stitch out the little holes, the little eyelet holes, if you will, so that you can put the Christmas lights, like real twinkly lights, through the openings. So let me change the thread out, and then you're going to see that stitch out. Okay, now I'm going to change out my thread color once more because it's going to do the satin stitch for the door. It's also going to stitch out the doorknob. Then I'm going to change it back to white, and it's going to do a detail on the door. And I'm not sure what comes after that. So we'll do those few things and then we'll meet back up here. Going to do a lot of detail work. So we're going to do and don't worry, my machine is locked. So when I'm putting my hands down here, it's okay because I have to unlock it in order for it to stitch. So we're going to do some detail stitching or finishing stitching around the windows. We're going to do window seals. We'll do the stitching around this window, a window seal. So I'm just going to let you watch. I'll change threads as necessary and we'll just keep going. Okay, so this is the part where if you would like, you can place your clear vinyl over both windows and then you're going to do a tack down stitch and then a trim. I'm gonna opt not to do the window. I just like the more natural fabric look instead of the shiny look. And this is where in your projects, you can make these decisions based on your own personal style. And for me, I just don't want that shiny window look. Though beautiful, I just want a little bit more of a timeless approach. So I'm going to skip that. I skipped it on my last quilt block as well with the house. So I'm going to skip that, but that's where you're going to do that. So next, we're just going to keep doing a little bit of detail on the house. And I went ahead and skipped ahead 2 steps because I will be using this color again. The next step was doing a detail stitch up here, and it wanted a different thread color, but the step after that has me using the same color that I just used. So you can skip around steps if you'd like. That way it limits how many times you change your thread color around. So after this stitch is out, I'll go back one and do another step where I will change my thread. Okay, so now we're going to stitch the placement line for our little glittery snow. So let me go ahead and stitch that out. And this material is going to be a glitter iron-on in white, and I forgot to prep this. For some reason, I must have just forgot to do it. So I'm going to trim down a piece that is big enough, okay? But before I do anything else, I also need to remove this liner. There is a plastic liner. So I need to remove that before I stitch this down. So now I just have my glittery vinyl. I can place that right down. I'm gonna tape that because you see how it's curling? That way it just doesn't shift. So I'll come up here and tape. Oops, might need some new tape. Oh, there we go. And then just right down here is fine. Okay, and then we'll stitch the tack down stitch. Okay, and then let me zoom in here a little bit. That way you can really start seeing the detail here. Okay, so then I can remove my tape, and we are really getting close to the end. I think it said that the full stitching time for this was about 32 minutes, I think. And of course that doesn't count when you're stopping to, you know, trim your applique or change your thread. So that's just pure stitching time. So we are almost done. We just have a couple more things to do. Now I'm going to grab my iron and my little desktop ironing board. And I am going to press, because again, this is an iron-on. So it has an adhesive on the back. So I'm going to press this on now that it has been tacked down. You want to wait though until after you trim it, because you don't want to press, you know, your whole square. You want just to press your final shape after you've trimmed the applique. Okay, so let me grab my ironing board to go underneath. Okay, so I just have my desktop ironing board for right underneath. And then I also have just some butcher paper, something to protect my thread from the heat, and my iron. And I'm just going to iron that iron-on down. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to go back over to my machine, and it's going to do the final detail stitch, which is really pretty. It's not a satin stitch like everything else. It's a different stitch, which is really pretty because it makes it look like there's a lot of fun snow detail. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do, well, we have a few steps left, but the last thing we need to do is our candy cane. So I'm going to do the placement line for the candy cane. And again, this is a red glitter iron-on, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to remove that liner before I place it down. And then I'll just cover my placement stitch with my glitter iron-on. Adding my tape just so that doesn't shift. Sometimes, again, with my fabric, especially with that fusible backing, I'm pretty comfortable just laying that down and having it stitched. But if I have a different material that kind of wants to curl, then I definitely want to make sure that's secure before I start stitching. And you know what, that was supposed to be a red thread, and I forgot to switch it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm simply gonna change my thread color, and I'm going to go right back over it. It won't be perfect, but it'll give more of a red look. So I'm just gonna back up a step, restitch that out with my red. Then we'll trim our applique and iron it down. Okay, so... And then don't mind this, I don't know if you can even see it, there was some stitching there, and it's because I forgot to go back a step and it started doing the next step when I wanted to redo the red. So no worries, it's gonna be covered up in just a moment. But I need to change my thread color back to white. And I'm also going to put an embroidery topper. It's the first time I've ever done an embroidery topper. It's kind of cool. Again, I did buy the embellishment kit that comes with that you can buy for this. And so that came in there. And I believe like the glitter iron, I think all of that is in the kit too. I think your fabric kit is purely fabric. Okay, there we go. Let me iron this down. Again, putting my butcher paper over that, ironing that down. Okay, looks great. Okay, changing my thread back to white, and I'm gonna put a topper. I'm just gonna lay a topper right on over it. It's almost kind of like a, oh, well, you'll see. And then I will stitch our very last step, which is just the embellishments for the candy cane. Okay, sliding my hoop in for the last time, and then this is the topper. So I'm just gonna place this, it's very big because I haven't trimmed it down, but I'm just gonna use an area that I can use, and it's kind of, not clear, but it's pretty see-through, so you can see where to lay it down. And then again, I will change my thread back to white for our last step. Okay, so now I have my cutting mat because we need to cut out our quilt block. And all you do with this topping is you just rip it off. So I'm gonna rip it, and I can always clean up any areas that need to be cleaned up with my embroidery scissors. Okay, and then I'll save this. What I've been doing is just trimming off what's used, and then I have this piece to use when needed again. Okay, so I'll grab my applique scissors, and you can either tear, actually I can just tear that, yeah. It's coming right off. But if it's too short to tear, you can just grab your scissors and clean it up a little bit. Okay, that looks really nice. Isn't that pretty? Love the glitter elements. All right, the final thing that I need to do is now we're going to unhoop this. Okay, put the hoop away, and we're going to trim this down. Now I have the little orange frames for trimming down my quilt blocks, but what I need to do is, I need to get this, you know, I don't know that I put this down far enough because my other block it's down further. You see that? Because this is supposed to be 1/4 of an inch. So I still had 1/4 of an inch to go. How did that not line up? Well, I'll know for next time. And you know what's forgiving about this is, I'll show you my directions. What's forgiving about this is that at the very end, we're gonna do a snowdrift over our blocks. So it's okay, because if I didn't get that perfect, even though I wish I would have gotten it at least closer, my other one I did it on my machine, which was a lot more difficult. So I just need to get better about that one and line that up with the bottom of the quilting. That would be about 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch higher. Okay, no problem. It will all work out. Okay, so I have this. Now this is a 6.5 by 8.5, which is what is called for. And I'm just lining this up with that outer stitch, okay, to trim out my final quilt block. And again, I'll show you when I turn it around, you'll see that when we go to sew our blocks together, there we go, we will have no batting in the seams. And I'm pushing out towards my ruler. That way I can get a nice straight line, go up. Okay, down here. It's so satisfying to do at the end. And then the bottom. Okay, so there is my final quilt block. I can remove it from my stabilizer. And there we go. Okay, so then I was sharing, when I got my machine, this was my first project. I wanted to test it and make sure everything was running smoothly, so I did my first quilt block on my own. But then when you turn this around, you can see the batting starts here, and then this does not have any batting. So when we go to stitch, we won't have batting in our seams, which is wonderful. So I can't remember which order it goes in, but then we can do sides together, stitch, and then we'll have 2 blocks together. Okay, all right, there we go. We are all finished with this quilt block. That was so fun to put together. I'm hoping it was fun for you to watch. I love watching people stitch out anything and everything. I think it's just so gratifying to watch. So there is one, and I wanted to show you too that throughout the process, I was just referring to my directions. So that way I knew what was coming up next and I could kind of prep my fabric. Okay, I think the next time we get together for this pillow, I really want to do the tree. So what I like to do is I like to just kind of follow along and see how far I have to go. So now I have 2 done. I'm going to do the tree next, and then we'll have just a few more to go. All right, it's looking good. Again, one of my goals this year is to make sure I finish some of my projects, and this has been on my list for a couple years now. All right, be sure to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Everything that I use will be linked below the video.